Welcome. Thank you. I'm Shoto. I'm the Sukansu and the Shisui here at SokukoJi Buddhist Monastery, which means I help keep things going, trying to help with the programming and the property upkeep here. I just want to invite anyone who finds value in these teachings to please participate either by joining us for the Dharma talks from either Sokuzan or his monks, his students. Join us for any of the book studies throughout the week, even just one time throughout the week would be great to see you in our Zendo or to join us online. We could really use your help with your practice, joining us, and also financially to help us keep the programming going here. So thank you very much.
Good evening. Welcome to our Wednesday night Dharma talk. My name is Myoka, and I will be giving the talk this evening. And the talk title is No Hoarding Materials or Teachings, which is the 8th prohibitory precepts that we receive here at SokukoJi. And first I will read the precept as we receive it here, and then I will also read Koban Chino Roshi's version in Embracing Mind. Eighth, no hoarding materials or teachings. Each being thoroughly expounds the Buddha Dharma. One robe covers all. What need is there to emphasize or attach to certain words or objects? Eighth, no hoarding materials or teachings. Each being thoroughly expounds the Buddha Dharma. One robe covers all. What need is there to emphasize or attach to certain words or objects? What showed up for me when I started looking into this was what happened to come up was Sokuzan's recent 60-second Dharma talk on I Know What I Teach. And it talked a lot about cover-ups. So I'm endeavoring to look at, is the 8th precept, hoarding materials or teachings, is there a kind of cover-up happening when we start to hoard materials or teachings? And this also shows up for me, in Koban's writing about it, is in terms of possession. When we start to possess something we think we know about what is being expressed. So let me read some of Koban's teachings on the 8th precept. And Koban is Sokuzan's Zen teacher, along with his root teacher, root guru, you might say, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche of Tibetan origin and lineage. So this is Koban's 8th precept. 8th precept, no hoarding materials or teachings. Self-nature is mysteriously profound. In the midst of all pervading truth, not to raise hoarding, attaching on any single form is also called no hoarding precept. And in his book, he also says, or it's said here, Dogen Zenji's words on the 8th precept were one phrase, one force, myriad phenomena, one truth, one confirmation, all Buddha, all patriarch. It has never been hoarded at all. When you understand that everything was given to everyone in the beginning, a sense comes that there is nothing to limit this as mine and that is not mine. When you go to the mountain and you see a flower blooming and you pick it up, break it, make it yours, this is attachment. If you let it be there for everything and everyone, this is what no attachment is. The original meaning is two characters, and I assume they're speaking of the Japanese or Chinese characters. The two characters, stingy and greedy. I might think this is mine and that is yours. The whole thing was given to me, so you cannot take it from me. If you keep something, you may have the idea that it was possessed by you, but it was not possessed by you. You become very poor by having this idea. Dogen Zenji said, when you open your hand, everything is in your hand. When you close your hand, the air is very limited. Explaining this idea of possession in this very pure way, naturally you understand this precept. Explaining this idea of possession. So that was one of the things that stood out to me is possession, hoarding, another word for possession. And then the original characters said, according to Colvin's book, stingy and greedy. So if we think we know something about what is happening or what is in front of us, and we attach to that, we grab onto it, come up with ideas around it, believe that illusion, is that an initial ignorance setting us up for by ignorance of not seeing what is there and trying to find knowledge or words to put to it, is that initial setup before we start to believe or disbelieve what is happening, that initial ignorance, is that setting us up for hoarding? Another way I was trying to look at it is in terms of just the basic ignorance of self and other. If we can't see that we are not separate and we are a separate being in the illusion, is anything we do hoarding or possessing something in a material way so that we can't do anything but hoard? I'm not sure. I'm looking at that and I'm wondering if that maybe that's going too far or that's not what the teaching is about. But I was endeavoring to look at it in that way. And I found something in the Diamond Sutra about teaching that I thought might help or might create some other way to go into this also. In Red Pine's version of the Diamond Sutra, verse 21, the Buddha said, Subhuti, what do you think? Does it occur to the Tathagata, I teach a Dharma? Subhuti replied, no, indeed, Bhagavan, it does not occur to the Tathagata, I teach a Dharma. The Buddha said, Subhuti, if someone should claim the Tathagata teaches a Dharma, such a claim would be untrue. Such a view of me, Subhuti, would be a misconception. How so? In the teaching of a Dharma, Subhuti, in the teaching of a Dharma, There is no such Dharma to be found as the teaching of a Dharma. So if the Buddha said there is no, in the teaching of a Dharma, there is no such Dharma to be found as the teaching of a Dharma, and the precept is no hoarding or no being stingy, greedy, or possessing. What is it to see the no possessing a teaching as it suggests in the Diamond Sutra? The Buddha did not have, let me read it again because I've already lost it. In the teaching of Dharma, there is no such Dharma to be found as the teaching of a Dharma. So in not finding the teaching of a Dharma, what is it in this precept to be no hoarding of teachings or Dharma? And again, the area I was trying to look at with this is in terms of cover up, that initial kind of cover up of what is occurring, and perhaps a setup of no hoarding or hoarding occurring, possessing, thinking we are someone who can know and pass on information to another. What is it for Dharma transmission to take place without those concepts or thoughts of who I am, what the Dharma is, that it's something I can hang on to and give or share? I was looking through some of Sokuzan's other 60-second talks, and I found another one that seemed to resonate. Whether it will when I read it again, I'm not sure. This one is in his 60-second Sokuzan, and it's called, which these are transcripts from ones that were presented on TikTok that I believe Paushan.
They're condensations into 60 seconds of 52 different talks they gave.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And this one was entitled Observe Your Production. In there, he says, Sokuzan says, but look at the way the thought production is covering up and what it is you need to see. You need to see the first lamentation, the second lamentation, the third lamentation of thoughts that conceal the truth. And what is the truth? You need to find out. It is about seeing this directly. You see it directly yourself. And that's just part of the talk. But that part I was looking at because if you see it for yourself, how do you see it for yourself and not hoard it? What is it to not hoard what's occurring when you're interacting with what looks like apparent others in the illusion? Without doing that in a skillful way, it looks like there's a lot of believing and disbelieving in all kinds of things and creating a kind of circularity that looks like a production, an illusion. And what is it to do that in a way that does not hoard materials or teaching? And the talk that SokukoJi gave that's online recently about it was about I know what I SokukoJi's I know what I teach 60-second talk. And there is a lot in there about cover-ups. So I'm trying to see, again, I've said this before, what it is about that ignoring, that cover-up that seems to hoard or does that hoard in a way that makes it impossible for us to teach when we're functioning in that way. I think I will take questions at this point. Are there any questions? Oh, no.
Wanda bowing. Are you, I mean, is it even possible to hoard? I think this is what one of your premises here. Is it even possible to hoard the teaching if we're not separate? Bowing.
It seems like the teachings point at that. I can't see that, so yeah, I think the best I can do is look at it at this point. Is there further?
Wanda bowing, is it even possible to hoard the teachings, I guess, is what I'm saying. If, you're saying you can't see, not separate. But conceptually, you're also saying we're not separate. So conceptually, is it possible to hoard? I mean, what could this precept be? Being aware of when we're holding on to a particular belief? Bowing?
Yeah, I think you can go either way. Like, say, if everything that we need to see is already the case and already in front of us, then yes, how could you hoard anything? But when we can't see that, it feels like the negative side of we can't help but do that as humans in this body and working with concepts. And I feel like no hoarding is just pointing us at that and seeing how we find that impossible to not hoard or be cringy, stingy,
Cringy.
or greedy,
Good.
possessive of Dharma teachings, or just even our own personhood of how we like things. SokukoJi.
If you see that you are observing, if you're endeavoring to observe this precept, and you see how in some way you are hoarding the teachings, is it necessary to stop doing that? And if you feel like it is it even possible to stop hoarding the teachings? And if you stop hoarding the teachings, isn't it also hoarding the teachings? Please be direct. Thank you.
Yes, it seems if we do anything with it, it's going to end up hoarding, and there's no way to not do that. What seems to be necessary that we can endeavor to do is receive what's happening and respond out of that. And whether it is or isn't hoarding, I don't think we need to know that part. conceptually.
Thank you.
Wando.
Wunderbaring. What, what does it mean to be hoarding the teachings when we stop hoarding the teachings?
Which she's got you there.
When we stop hoarding the teachings, it looks like if you can conceive of that, you're hoarding teachings. The teachings are there. It seems like they're expounded, and is it our business to hoard or not hoard, or to even know whether we're hoarding or not hoarding? It seems like that turns towards the cover up, towards not teaching out of what we see, but teaching out of what we know. And I feel like in Colvin's explanation of possessing and being stingy and greedy, it seems like that's what's happening. The grasping is what we need to see, not necessarily whether it's a hoarding. So is that.
If you're a fully ordained Buddhist monk, which you are, and you dress up as a vampire and fool people, isn't that hoarding the teachings?
Yes. And it's a lot of fun.
I think you had company too.
Yunkai.
Okay, Vine. What's showing up for me is this thought of that this is my Sangha. My Sangha. Is this not my Sangha?
It's interesting to look at what is my, whether it's Sangha. Is there a particular area you were thinking of in terms of Sangha being different than my anything, my glasses, my cup, my phone?
Okay, bowing, maybe in the sense that I want control over it.
Sangha and the way we interact seems about like the intention of how we are showing up and responding to Sangha, perhaps because they're our spiritual community. But in terms of my, soon as I hear my, then I think of personhood. Like I'm trying to, like, this is my Sangha and that's not my Sangha. This is my phone and that's not my phone. It seems to set up that duality of here's me and my stuff. And even Sangha could be part of that, locking down on our personality or the way we believe in this person. James?
James Bowling. Why are monks not allowed to be fortune tellers? I think that's related to not hoarding.
Fortune telling seems like it has a lot to do with something that's going to happen or that looks like it's in the future. And I like to look at astrology and other types of things that could be used as fortune telling, but I don't think it's useful. I think in that way it just causes more confusion. I don't,
Okay,
that answers your question.
I was asking more about the money part of it. Is hoarding knowledge the same as a fortune teller asking for money?
I guess it could be, but I don't know. I've never done that. Ask
Oh,
for money for something I could predict.
have you ever said, give me money and I'll tell you the truth?
No,
Okay, thank you.
thank you. Hondo.
Ondo buying in Coben's, what you read from Coben, the second sentence said something like, self nature is mysterious. What is he pointing at there?
Myoka bowing, that is the very first phrase he says in every single one of the precepts of the 10. Self-nature is mysteriously profound. I think of that, what pops out when I hear that, as he repeats it over and over, is observe the precepts. Don't take precepts. And then I could hear him saying, self-nature is mysteriously profound. How do how could you take something that is mysteriously profound? It seems like those 5 words, self-nature is mysteriously profound, makes me think of curiosity and endless study.
Ondo buying, what is he saying about self nature? I mean, what is self nature in that phrase, or that sentence?
I don't know. I would have to ask him. What I receive from it is self-nature as an individual thing. I wasn't, perhaps all beings self-nature. I could also take it as me and my stuff and my nature, but I tend to look at it as everything has a kind of self-nature. And in teaching or in hoarding seems to try to solidify or limit that self-nature. But this is all my speculation because I don't know what he is intending with this. Is there further questions online? Jishin?
Machine bowing. I have actually two. But I will start with that quote from Diamond Sutra, which you shared with us. And I'm wondering how you understand that quote. Yes, thank you.
I don't understand it. It's quote verse 21, and I took just the first portion of it, and it's similar to his other verses where it's set up so that there's a kind of duality. Let me read it again. The Buddha said, Subhuti, if someone should claim the Tathagata teaches a Dharma, such a claim would be untrue. So how could the Buddha be teaching a Dharma and the Tathagata teach a Dharma, and someone makes a claim about it? that the Tathagata teaches a Dharma, it looks like a person is teaching a thing. And such a claim would be untrue. Such a view of me, Subhuti, would be a misconception. And how so? In the teaching of a Dharma, Subhuti, the teaching of a Dharma, in the teaching of a Dharma, let me read it again. And how so? In the teaching of a Dharma, Subhuti, in the teaching of a Dharma, there is no such Dharma to be found as the teaching of a Dharma. So setting us up to think there is a thing that is a Dharma that can be taught by somebody. And I think in this Diamond Sutra, it often does that, like sets us up what we would initially perhaps think about something and then see that it's untrue. But in seeing that it's untrue, we're also kind of creating a thing. But again, this is my interpretation, speculation. It'd be nice to ask the Buddha.
Thank you. I'm just wondering if that Dharma, which cannot be found, okay, there is no such a Dharma to be found, is that Dharma which cannot be found because that the Dharma is just a concept. But as I'm listening to you tonight, I'm just wondering how the teachings can be heard by using concepts and adding our interpretation. Whether this is the process which can be an example of actually hoarding the teachings or maybe changing the teachings. How concepts are playing into it.
I think it's often said that teachers point at the truth, and we have words and concepts, and Soka-san says, well, we have to say something or something to that effect. And we are communicating around Dharma, but anytime we take what is said and try to hold it up or put it down on paper so that it's the same words, the same way to the same person over and over again, then I think that somehow misses what's being pointed at. Although at the same time, that doing that, what else could we do? That's all we can do, and then just see how we're not able to do that, how we might turn away from the Dharma and turn away from that's being pointed at with our concepts.
Thank you. I'm just wondering if there is a difference between this kind of process of dealing with the teachings versus just receiving the teachings. Bowing.
Yes, there's a difference, and at the same time, that is receiving the teachings if you can see what you're doing with it or what's happening. Are there further questions online? I heard someone say something, but it was not clear. Are there further questions in here? I have some more I can present also.
Someone have their microphone
It looks like Deb, you may have your microphone unmuted.
So I have a question.
Yes.
I would like you to comment a little bit, if you could please, on how something I often say is you really don't have to get rid of anything, change anything. You don't have to do anything but be aware. So if you are aware that you're hoarding the Dharma in some way, or keeping something to yourself, or keeping someone away from the actual Dharma by teaching them in such a way that they're not ready to receive, which would be a form of hoarding as far as I'm concerned. So I often say don't teach unless you have to, or unless someone tells you to or asks you to. But I know that you've been studying this for a while. Like, could you possibly say something about being aware of this precept? That's the fundamental teaching here, is to be aware of these precepts. These are not to be obeyed, they're to be observed. And that's very challenging to the ego. Could you say something about that, please? Thank you.
Yes, the precepts as we receive them and study them here are about observing. And the way we do that may involve or may not involve any kind of what we would typically think of teaching. Because if that shows up that we are entering somebody's space when they're not asking or giving us permission to teach, then that hoarding looks like a kind of obstruction, and perhaps the best thing is to remain silent and offer to listen to someone who is studying the Dharma or asking questions and maybe not responding necessarily to what they're asking. SokukoJi.
So, for instance, I could give you a little bit of direction that may take you into a way of responding to this. For instance, Yunkai just said very genuinely and sincerely, "This is my Sangha." That could be thought of by someone who's living out of their idealism. Well, you shouldn't feel that way. You should be more magnanimous or something and not be so grabby about your Sangha. Or so could you apply that? Just observe that? Would you have a temptation, or would anyone have a temptation particularly to control the way Yunkai or anyone viewed the Sangha? And if you did try to control the way someone viewed the Sangha rather than just receiving that, could that be seen to be breaking or ignoring the 8th precept? Thank you.
Yes.
I'm not trying to step in here and teach in your place. I'm giving you some information that you might be able to take this further, especially using a very good example. But she's just being, this is how it looks to her, and she's telling you how this looks. No justification behind it. Powerful understanding. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I think that the example of my Sangha I think in a question like that, I could, or anyone could, perhaps ask more questions about what is meant by my Sangha. And perhaps I in responding do, or did rush to some kind of judgment. I don't think there's any way for me to know that. But I think receiving that question and asking more about what is meant by a statement like my Sangha would be helpful.
Thank you.
And seeing the way my own definition of those words, my and Sangha, may alter or influence my perception of what is being said by the other person in that question.
So do you feel that I'm breaking the 8th precept when I don't want to loan anybody my Dharma books? Yes or no?
No,
What if I give them to them?
it's could be yes or no,
What if I give them to them and steal them back?
yes or no.
3 more. What if, what if, what if? You see what I'm getting at?
It looks like I can come up with conclusions about any of it,
Certainly can.
and
And when you conclude anything, what is that?
shutting down,
And what is the 8th precept?
no hoarding.
Hoard your own consciousness by put it in the service of your narcissism, your ego. Be very generous, give everything away. Sorry to step into your teaching dynamic here, but this mandala belongs to Yunkai and me. Very good. You're doing very well. Keep going.
James,
Thank you.
thank you.
James Bowling, how do you distinguish between a student that's really not ready for something and a teacher who just says they're not ready because they don't like that student?
Have you had a teacher tell you that they don't like a student?
Now, I feel like the master can all point to any student and say you're not ready forever. And then, so I'm just asking, how do you avoid that?
You may not avoid it. Anytime it looks like if I were to try to distinguish a student from a non-student, and how would I know? I think the teacher, is it necessary for a teacher to know or distinguish? I think in terms of materials and teaching, that if we're distinguishing, we are hoarding because we think we know what needs to be said and what needs to be done and how somebody needs to receive that or listen to it.
You don't see a difference between that and between hoarding. I feel like there is a difference.
I'm not clear on what you mean by that.
I feel like there's a difference that you're not seeing. So between just normal teaching and hoarding.
What do you mean by normal teaching?
Some things won't sink in for some people, and then some things people just can't do because of skill issues. Some people just don't have the skill to use certain teachings, and there's a difference. I'm just asking, how do you tell the difference between people that really can't do something and people that you just don't want to teach now?
I think that sounds more like a conventional teaching situation where we know something and somebody can grasp it and somebody can't. And there's in terms of spiritual side, I don't think there's a distinguishing or if there is, you just see how you do that. And a true teacher, would they distinguish that kind of thing. It just seems very fishy to me that if I had a teacher who was distinguishing what kind of student and what somebody could or could not grasp in terms of there's just so many angles of that just look very fishy, like time for one. If you don't grasp it today, but you grasp it 10 years from now, is there something that's being mistaught?
Okay, why not just start at the final teaching then?
I'm not sure, but it doesn't feel very helpful to me to start at the final end of something. But I don't know, that may be someone's path.
Okay, thanks.
Does anyone else have a question this evening? Oh, no.
Divine, do you find in this precept motivation or inspiration from your practice?
Yes, the thing that shows up a lot in all of these precepts is the motivation. It gives me something to look at and to see how the more I look at it, the more I think Chokodawa's expressed this before in talks where they all start to look the same. They're all pointing at something that I need to look at and endeavor to receive what's being said, what's being taught. It feels very motivating to me. And I think that's partly why I've been choosing these topics. I've been choosing different precepts and trying to relate them to other teachings because it seems very helpful to me. Assuming, it is making a little bit of an assumption that these teachers are all seeing something that I don't see, and perhaps in a similar way that takes us into what's being looked at. Further questions? Jishin?
Addition Bowing, I'm trying to formulate the question, and I'm not sure that I'm completely ready, but I will ask it anyway. I'm just looking for the connection between self-nature, the quote from Kobun that self-nature is mysteriously profound, and I'm thinking about the Dharma as a concept, which is limited first of all, which limits, and I'm wondering. I think that you were talking about, you were quoting someone saying that we are closing our hand and we are holding like the air there. I'm just wondering if we have an idea of understanding through the concepts. Isn't this the similar experience of holding something completely empty? And yet, no, we are still trying to do it. I don't know whether you follow me, but I'm searching for the connection between self-nature, which is extremely profound, and we cannot grasp it, and yet we are grasping those concepts which are empty. Is there any connection there? Bowing.
Well, that quote came out of Kobun's book, and it's Dogen who is, using that example of the hand, the open hand and closed hand. And I don't know if I followed everything or what you were asking about self-nature. How do you understand that self-nature?
Going, I don't know, Buddha nature, maybe? I don't know, I cannot give you the answer to it, but I'm just taking it as it is described, mysteriously profound. Bowing.
I don't think I can do better than Dogen in pointing out how there is something that we do with our words and our thoughts and our being, and at the same time, there's something that can be pointed at by someone like him using a hand that points at something that's not a hand, it's something mysteriously profound. And you could also say it's self-nature. But how do we use words to do that? I just look at Dogen's example and I see how I can't do that.
Thank you.
Is there a final question? Either online or in Zendo? James? Go ahead, James.
James Bowling. Is the profundity of Buddha nature its self-existent nature? Like, I don't know, there's analogies like clear light and analogies with fire burning on its own. Is it being independent the profundity that they're referring to? Bowing.
I think it could be taken that way. And if one of those is useful and keeps us practicing, we could reflect on that and go back to just sitting and seeing what shows up. But to take and apply it in some way directly from one concept to another, one person to another, I think that's probably doing too much with it. And also in just using the word profundity, we may see that it's actually very surface and something not so profound, something ordinary that could show up and help us in some way. So I guess I'm saying don't, we may not want to fixate on any particular concepts, no matter how great they look in the moment. It may not be helpful, or it may be.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I think we can close and dedicate the merit.